So Van Buren is a spoil system guy who's running. This is the 1836 election. And who's he running against? We now have a new party called the Whigs. All right? National Republican, people like Henry Clay, move away from the National Republicans, and the Whig Party is formed. And you can see that William Henry Harrison is the first Whig candidate. Where do we know William Henry Harrison from? What did he get famous doing?
Having the longest.
No. Do what?
Was it a war?
Yeah, he was a general in the War of 1812, and he won the Battle of Tippecanoe. Now, theoretically speaking, who would have been the most eligible Whig candidate? Who always ran for president and never won? Henry Clay. William Henry Harrison was not a particularly skilled politician, but he was more famous than Clay nationally because of being a war hero. Who wins the election? Van Buren does. Van Buren wins the 1836 election, and we get essentially, theoretically, another era of Jacksonian democracy, although things are going to change a lot. What's going to happen to Van Buren is all the stuff that Jackson did that sucked economically, the last part of his administration, caught up to the country under Van Buren. Kind of like what happened to the first President Bush. The first President Bush is seen as being a weaker president, but he was sort of saddled with some of the problems that happened due to the end of the Reagan administration, and he ends up looking like he's the cause of a lot of it, when actually he's actually a relatively underrated president.
I feel like that's Obama with George W. Bush.
Yeah.
The first term, the first couple of years, yeah, all presidents sort of inherit what the last president did. I mean, there's not a clean break, or the economy doesn't restart on January 20th. And Obama did take over the largest debt we've ever had, plus 2 wars, plus other stuff, and the worst financial situation since the Great Depression. So that's bad. But now, it's all him, right? I mean, he's been in there for too many years to say, it's all Bush. The debt stuff, a lot of it is still from the previous administration. But and that's one reason why people were critical of Bush, is because he took over after Clinton, and budget-wise, things were great. And that's one reason people can be critical. All right, let's make sure, please, for the love of Pete, for the love of all that is good and holy, make sure you understand the differences between Whigs and Democrats, okay? This will help you analyze multiple choice questions. It will help you see essays better. It will help you see our country better if we can start seeing what the different parties are thinking, okay? We'll do Democrats first because we know a little bit about them already. What do we know about Democrats? Who's supporting Democrats?
Poor people.
Like the common man. Where are we seeing this nationally?
Cities. Like urban areas.
Well, what type of people? Maybe some in cities, but what type of people in cities? Factory workers, right? Like laborers. Laborers in city will end up being Democrats. For example, by the 1850s and 60s, Irish will end up being Democrats because most of them are laborers. But where is the bulk of the support for Democrats?
North.
South.
South.
No, the North is not Democrat until like the 30s.
I know, but they have all the factories, is what I was...
Yeah, you're right. And they have a lot of workers, but that's just in cities, right? The small towns in the North tend to be overwhelmingly Whig. So we're talking common man, people mostly in the South. The South is just wholly Democratic. What about the American system? Remember, what's the American system favor, federal or state rights? Federal rights. So do Democrats like the American system? No, they're anti-Clay, anti-American system. They want more states' rights. Are Democrats pro or anti-spoil system? Pro-spoil system. Pro-machine politics. Machine politics are mostly in cities with laborers. Pro-spoil system in the South. Pro-states' rights. Common man stuff. Very anti-monopoly. in the belief that government should stay out of the lives of Americans. So make sure you understand who Democrats are and what they believe. On the Whig side, these new Whigs are coming, they're kind of like old school Federalists. They're supported more by people like merchant and industrialists, right? They supported more federal rights. These are people that, like middle class, upper middle class other people who have a little bit of money. Who do you think is usually more educated, Whigs or Democrats?
Whigs.
Whigs are usually a little more democratic, or they're usually more educated. They did not like the spoils system. In fact, they wanted to reduce corruption. Democrats wouldn't call it corruption. Whigs would call it corruption. The Whigs also wanted to use the government to solve and fix moral problems, like, for instance, slavery. Moral problem, like the abolition of slavery, the prohibition of alcohol is going to be a big one because they're seeing alcohol as a reason why people are poor. There's a big question. Are people alcoholics because they're poor, or are they poor because they're alcoholics? The chicken and the egg, right? We'll talk about that when we get to the jungle. You guys will read the jungle in a couple months. By the way, I asked Fifth Block, and I think I talked to some people yesterday in here. How many of us, and be honest, have our book already and started reading our book? It's okay if you haven't. I'm not going to shoot you. How many of you haven't got your book yet?
No.
Fifth Block, there was nobody. Everyone had gotten their book already. Yeah. I'm giving you this week, so I mean, you got a couple weeks, it's no big deal, and if you read relatively quickly, you can get through these books pretty quick. I'm a slow reader, but remember, are you on your paper telling me what happened in the book? No, that's a good way to get a 0, and it's good for me because I don't have to read the whole paper. I already know what happened in the book, 0, and I get back to you. What are you doing? Analyzing. So make sure you're analyzing the thesis. What's the thesis? What evidence is being presented? All right. So I ain't mad at you, but I would start finding the book you want to read. Okay. So those are Democrats versus our Whigs. Van Buren ends up winning by quite a bit. And now we have to look and see what Jackson gave us. What did Jackson give us? So let's start talking about positives and negatives that Jackson gives us. And while that's happening, Amanda, can you see how much is on the thing?
8:13.
Okay. All right. So let's do this. Positives, negatives of our boy Jackson. What can we say? Don't be scared. In fact, Hannah, once you hit the red button, I want you guys to think about 2 minutes and people around you.